Welcome to Miyconst Hardware. This video is going to be a bit different from my channel because I am going to review this tiny x86 mini computer from a company called MeLe. So this one was sent to me free of charge, but of course, as always, I'm going to provide my honest opinion, and I have tested everything I could possibly test with this tiny unit. I have also disassembled it and looked what you can find inside. In general, I'm not that interested in mini computers because most of them are not upgradable and they have very limited use case, and I'm just not interested in mini computers. This time around though, I decided to take on because I want to have a media computer attached to my TV, so I have a complete and full freedom of what software I install, what advertisements I block, and what I want to show on my screen, and don't follow all that smart TV crap which cannot be disabled and cannot be customized. MeLe makes several different mini computers, and this one is Quieter 4C, which is a fanless design, so you have absolutely no moving parts inside and it's totally silent. If you're interested in the unboxing experience of what you get inside the box, then I have a detailed unboxing on my secondary channel. In this video, I'm only going to talk about the test results, the performance, the thermals, and so on. As always, I have noted all my test results over here, and I have 3 pages to go through, so let's get it started. First of all, let's quickly follow through the specifications of the unit I'm going to test. So the one I have got is coming with Intel N150 CPU. This is not Intel Pentium, this is not Intel Celeron. We have only 4 efficient cores, and these cores are running maximum at 3.6 GHz, and the TDP package is limited to just 6 watts. The CPU also comes with the Intel UHD graphics, so we have an iGPU, and this one has 24 execution units, which is good enough to play 4K YouTube videos. RAM in this device is soldered on the motherboard or on the board itself. We have 16 GB in my particular unit. It's DDR5 4800. For the storage, we have a standard M.2 slot, which is PCI Express 3.0x4, and my unit is equipped with a 512GB SSD drive from a company I never heard before called AirDisk. Then, in terms of ports, even though this is a tiny mini computer, I'm surprised to see this many ports. We have one USB 2.0, two USB 3.0, and one USB Type-C ports. For the video outputs, we have 2 HDMI ports, and the USB Type-C port also supports DisplayPort over USB Type-C. Maximum refresh and resolution is 4K 60Hz. It's the limitation of Intel UHD graphics. It is not able to output 4K at 120 Hz. For network or connectivity, Quieter 4C comes with Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 5.1. Additionally, we also have a Gigabit Ethernet adapter, which comes with a full-sized Ethernet jack. We also have a 3.5mm combo jack for audio input and output, means headset and microphone, and extra we have a micro SD card slot. Micro SD card slot can be used for quickly swapping in and out your movies, photos, or whatever else. Now let's talk about pricing and where you can buy this MeLe Quiter 4C PC. MeLe is a rather new or rather small company that I never heard before, but I have checked around and they actually have pretty decent supply chain. So you can buy this PC on Amazon with shipping from Sweden. For me in Sweden that is very convenient because the delivery is very quickly, but I believe they also are available on Amazon in other countries. In addition, you can also buy them on AliExpress with shipping from China, and you can also buy directly from their website. The price everywhere is about the same, and it will greatly depend on the configuration you want. Quieter 4C is available with Intel 100 and Intel N150 CPUs. It is also available with a different RAM capacity, with or without SSD, with and without operating system. So in general, it's going to cost you somewhere between 210 and 310 euros or US dollars. My particular unit with Intel 150 CPU, 512GB SSD, 16GB of RAM, and Windows 11 Pro installed cost on their website, including shipping and 25% Swedish VAT tax, so that would be somewhere around 310 euros. Okay, MeLe Quiter 4C has great distribution, okay price, pretty attractive appearance, but how about performance? So for performance, I have done some tests, and here the results greatly depend on the thermal surrounding of this mini PC. As I have already mentioned, this is a totally fanless design. It means that it only relies on the passive heat dissipation. And if you put this tiny PC on your desk, then there will be absolutely no gap between the bottom of the mini PC and the desk, and there will be lots of heat trap. So the performance greatly depends on the ambient temperature and how and where you keep this mini PC. In general, or on average, I could say that in Cinebench R23 we can score about 660 points with one CPU core and about 1400 points for all CPU cores. In Geekbench 5 the scores are 1050 and 2050 points. Now, Geekbench 5 is available for ARM CPUs as well, so I can compare that directly to Raspberry Pi 5, and Raspberry Pi 5 scores 82150 points. So Raspberry Pi 5 is not able to match single-core performance of Intel N150 in Quiter 4C, but it is slightly faster when all CPU cores are utilized. Regarding the storage performance, this AirDisk SN14469 delivers very typical PCI Express 3.0 NVMe SSD performance, and for the longevity or reliability I can't really say much. The SSD works so far. I have done a couple of tests back and forth. It works just a typical budget NVMe PCI Express 3.0 SSD. No complaints, but also no prizes. The SD card slot I unfortunately cannot test to its limits because I do not have fast SD cards, but I have tested it with some random micro SD card I had lying on my desk, and the slot works just fine. So at least you have an opportunity to expand your storage without going into the mini computer. USB 3 ports I have tested with my external Samsung T5 SSD drive, and they deliver full speed, and I did not receive or did not notice any issues. It just works, and that's not much extra to say. The RAM performance with Intel N150 in Quiter 4C isn't great, but it's also not a disaster. We have single-channel DDR5 4800, and for the read we have about 24.7 Gbps, and for the write we have 35.3 Gbps, something along these lines. So single channel would not do much more, but my theory is that the read speed is slower than the write speed, maybe because of thermal throttling or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but usually read and write speed are about the same. So in terms of performance, we could say that Quiter 4C with Intel N150 CPU is just enough for your daily workloads and simple office tasks. It is able to match Raspberry Pi in performance and probably replace it in many different applications, but at the same time it has much better connectivity, and I would of course prefer it over Raspberry Pi 10 out of 10 times. Now let's check out the frequency and the behavior of Quiter 4C under load. So I have done several tests, starting with the Cinebench R23 with a 10-minute torture test. I have tested single core usage and all core usage. With a single core, the CPU after stabilization stays at about 2.6 GHz clock frequency, and when all CPU cores are loaded, the frequency is somewhere about 1.6 GHz, so yeah, it goes much lower than the maximum turbo of 3.6 GHz. In addition to this, the CPU may heat up to 90 degrees Celsius, but usually it stays at about 70-75 degrees Celsius, and these temperatures are hot enough to heat up the entire chassis, so it is too hot to keep it in your hands. Just keep that in mind and make sure that you mount or attach it securely, especially if you plan to attach it behind your TV. Make sure that there are no materials around that could easily melt, and make sure that there is some space around the PC from all sides. One interesting observation I have got with this Quiter 4C mini PC is that if I install the back plate for mounting the PC on the wall or behind the TV, or using the VESA mounting mechanism, then the temperatures are going down pretty noticeably. And my theory is that first of all, this plate provides some extra gap when I put it on the table, so it has some extra ventilation. And in addition, there are two screws in the middle of the PCB which are mounting or attaching this plate, and these two screws are providing extra pressure for the whole assembly, and that extra pressure helps to extract heat more efficiently from the CPU. Apart of Cinebench R23, I have also tested video playback using YouTube 4K 30 FPS samples. Here I have tested it for more than 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes CPU peak temperature was about 90 degrees Celsius, but their overall temperature was much more manageable at somewhere 60-70 degrees Celsius, like that. And the frequency of the CPU still would boost up to 3.5 GHz occasionally, but mostly it would stay at about 3 GHz. I also have to say that the video playback itself was very smooth, and I did not have any or very little skipped frames. All in all, thermal performance of MeLe Quiter 4C is not ideal, but it is manageable. How about power delivery and power consumption? Here power is being delivered by such 12-volt power adapter, and what is confusing is that the power is being delivered through USB Type-C jack. Unfortunately, this USB Type-C jack is designed only for power delivery, and you cannot use this power adapter with any other USB Type-C chargeable devices, because this power adapter is not adhering to the USB Type-C protocol, and instead it is just pumping 12 volts into the jack it is being plugged in. It works with Quiter 4C with no issues because it is designed that way, but if you plug it into your phone, for example, or into your speakers or other USB Type-C device, it is very likely that 12 volts will just kill that device. In terms of numbers, when Quiter 4C is turned off, then the power adapter from the wall sucks about half a watt of electricity. During idling, when just staying at Windows desktop, we get about 8.5 watts of electricity consumption. Cinebench R23 all-core test consumes about 14 watts of electricity, and YouTube 4K video playback consumes about 15 watts of electricity. How it happens that YouTube video playback consumes more electricity? Well, that's because the iGPU is also consuming extra power and not just the CPU. I would not be myself if I would not disassemble Quiter 4C mini PC to see how it's all done inside. Inside you get an SBC with the CPU and RAM soldered onto the board itself. So make sure that you buy the model that has enough memory for you, because later on you will not be able to upgrade from 8 to 16 to 32 gigs of memory. Storage, on the other hand, can be upgradable through a standard M.2 slot, which supports PCI Express NVMe SSD drives and also SATA SSDs. SATA I have not tested myself, because right now I don't have a SATA M.2 drive, but according to the specs it shall work. This entire board with the CPU and RAM soldered on is a sandwich between two panels of the chassis. The panel on the CPU side is much thicker and supposed to have this clever design for easy heat dissipation through special cutouts, but I would want to have it a bit thicker. One flaw I can spot is that the mounting screws are located at the edges of the board, and that means that we might not have enough pressure in the center of the board. Still, I cannot claim that this is an issue, because the chassis heats up very quickly and it stays hot as long as the CPU is hot, so the heat conductivity is obviously there. The factory applied thermal paste looks like a chewing gum, but I have to say that it gets the job done. I have repasted my Quiter 4C with the MX4 thermal paste, and I did not see any improvements in thermal performance. It was just the same as from the factory. In general, disassembling and assembling back Quiter 4C is not that hard, but it might be a bit tricky due to the glued antenna. The antenna wires prevent you from taking the SBC of the board from the frame, and you need to get all the stuff done being attached with these wires to the frame. With all that being covered, you shall have good understanding of what Quiter 4C PC is, how it's made, and what it is capable of. Now let's have a few words about potential use cases. Starting with my personal one, I will use it as a media player attached behind my TV. It is a shame and a disappointment that I cannot maximize my TV at 4K 120Hz, but 4K 60Hz is not bad at all, and I will start with that. Another potential obvious use case is a simple office PC or a secondary PC where you need another PC at a remote location to connect to your main workstation. The hardware here is good enough for your simple daily office tasks or for a remote desktop to use your another strong workstation. Quieter 4C also does not consume much power and costs pretty reasonable, so it can be considered as a very viable alternative to Raspberry Pi if you do not need the GPIO header, and you will benefit from the x86 architecture that supports Windows 11 out of the box and has compatibility with all the possible software. Still, because Quieter 4C is a fanless PC and it heats up rather quickly, I would not recommend it for places where you have high ambient temperature, something like 25–30 degrees Celsius. I do understand that complete silence is a good selling point and it is also a good advertising slogan, but the reality is that it would be nice to have a possibility for some sort of active cooling. For example, if there would be a mounting bracket to just install a fan on top and then an extra fan connector. I don't know how it shall be done, but some sort of a solution for better cooling would be much appreciated. The last section of this video will cover some extra notes about MeLe Quiter 4C PC that I believe you shall know. So first of all, I found multiple reports online that some of these Quiter 4C PCs come with soldered integrated storage in form of an eMMC card. So if you need that or you don't need that, in any case, make sure that you buy the right version, and if you're unsure, message the seller and figure out what exactly is on sale and what exactly you are getting. I have also seen some complaints online that in their case the thermal paste was not properly applied and the CPU was not properly attached to the side of the chassis, so the cooling didn't really work. In my case, it was not a problem, and after repasting the CPU, I did not get any thermal improvements, so at least my unit works with no issues in this regard. Finally, you can buy Quiter 4C with or without operating system. Mine came with a Windows 11 installation, and from what I can tell, this is absolutely clean Windows 11 installation with no bloatware, with no trackers and nothing like that. Still, I have done complete system wipe out and reinstalled Windows 11. Once you reinstall Windows 11, you can download all the required drivers from the Asus website. Asus took over Intel's NUC business, and now they're making these NUCs, 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 whatever. And they also have Intel N150 options, Intel N100 options. Just use these drivers and Windows 11 will recognize all the necessary devices. For the conclusion, I can't really say much. I really like this Quiter 4C mini PC for its fanless, tiny cute design. It looks pretty sleek, it has all the connectivity ports I would want in a mini PC. It is also very pleasant to touch, but at the same time it has very limited usability. For example, you could use it as a media PC or as a simple desktop office PC, and you also need to take care of the possible overheating. So if that's something you can deal with and you need a media player or you have some other use for such a mini PC, I can absolutely recommend it. How long it's gonna work, what kind of a warranty you will get, if you will get any BIOS updates, I have absolutely no idea. I am testing and reviewing this unit as it was given to me with no additional information and no additional constraints on what I can say and how I can say. For now, I'm just going to connect this Quiter mini PC to my TV, mount it somewhere and start using as a media player. How long it's gonna last, I have no idea. What is going to be my long-term review and the long-term impression of this mini PC, I also have no idea. But from what I can find online, these ones seem to be pretty reliable. So if you have a use and you need a mini PC, give MeLe Quiter 4C a try. With this, I have to say, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I hope it was interesting and somehow useful. Bye for now and see you in the next videos.